my childhood life at the time was really happy and carefree childhood, and I remember that period of my life very well, and in fact I enjoyed in that part of my life, especially in this part of Bosnia here in Drina Valley, and we lived not far from Srebrenica, in a countryside, in a smaller village, 50 or 20 kilometers far from town, and we had a small farm with we was one average family, and I had a mother, father, and three younger sisters, and we lived there, and I remember that I enjoyed taking care of the animals, and I like the sport as well. Beside that, and my my father also worked for a company, and we had a normal life, and really it was fantastic, and as I like the sport, every my every day was including football, because I like the football and national team of Yugoslavia. I like football, and almost everyday activity was football. I used every free moment to play football with my friends, and a lot of kids were in the village. I remember that we went together to school, and every day we made some mischief, and looking at this from in fact from this point of view, I would like such life for every child, because it was a really happy childhood, safe childhood, uh, free, carefree childhood, and with a lot of parental care for us, and without any care about the future, because we enjoyed in life, in fact, and no one could imagine such things in a months ahead or in years ahead, and that moments of my life, as I said, I remember very well, and it was the in fact it was the best part of my life. It was childhood, and I want to say that such things we don't have today here, even 25 years after the war. In fact, tensions started everywhere around us, and from that time, from that moment, I remember the columns of the army which went to Croatia through our places, through my place, and at, they in fact they want the war in Croatia, to wage war in Croatia, and I remember that columns, and they very often they opened the gunfire, and with threatens, but at the time I was a boy, and I didn't know a lot about that, and we were boys, and we just were running, and we said we would say hello to them, and and things like that, and but as my father and mother, my parents were not, for example, politically active, we thought that war was not our war, and we didn't have nothing with that, and war would last for a short period, and it would uh, go by us without disturbing us. We lived in our home. We had our home, and my father invested his whole life in that, and never could imagine to leave his home and become a refugee one day. My mother as well, and I remember that days at the beginning. It was March and April, February, March, and then April. That was the last moments in my school, and I remember that moments when, for example, children started in fact they stopped the greeting us. They starting to go separately. They refused hanging out and with us, and soon after that, my school was closed down, and we were forced to leave village. And in fact, we fled our home, and we began our hiding, and we began. In fact, it began our agony. Usually, when I talk about that, I talk about this July and Srebrenica, but we had a lot of problems before that, and genocide started much earlier. And immediately at the beginning of the war, and I just want to say some things about my father. When the Serb soldiers one day arrived in our village, we fled. We escaped. My mother and my sisters, and I remember that moment. It was very difficult moment for us. We had a lot of we had a fear, and we did. In fact, we didn't know where to go, but we were running toward the woods to hide, and with other neighbors, with other relatives, and with my friends as well. And I remember that my father refused to leave. He said to us, "Yeah, go. I will follow you. Go. I want to close the door. I wanted to close the house." But in fact, he didn't have fear at that. Few days earlier, he came from Serbia, from Belgrade, where he worked for a Serbian company, and he came home, and immediately after he came, the war broke out, and he, during his coming from Serbia, during his traveling, he saw a lot of bad things everywhere, and he was aware what was going on. But after that, he was arrested by Serb soldiers in front of my house, and he was tortured. But he was released soon after, a few days after that, and because they sent him and a few other people to the other neighbors and to other people they sent the message that we should have returned our home, and that we would be safe. But it was not true. It was a lie. And after that, we were hiding in the forest, and we lived later everywhere, in so many places, hiding from the soldiers, from the bombs, from shelling. And in the March of 1993, we arrived in Srebrenica, when Srebrenica became a safe zone. At the times, yes, Srebrenica, I often use that word, and I often say that Srebrenica was one big concentration camp without barbed wire and without, but with the Serb soldiers and with the minefields everywhere around us, and we couldn't leave town. And Srebrenica, in fact, we were in that concentration camp without food, without running water, without anything, and it was a huge catastrophe for all of us. And Serbs around Srebrenica could leave and could go wherever they wanted, but we were not. We were in Srebrenica, and we spent a few. In fact, we spent two years there, and in such circumstances, without anything. And it was darkness, huge darkness for everybody. But that the blue helmets came there to help us and to protect us. But unfortunately, they didn't. They came there just to observe our tragedy. And what I thought, I remember, despite all that, I was boy, and I spent all days with my friends, with my new friends I met there, and we were. But I remember that we were dirty, without shoes, without anything. But my family, and I hope that that darkness cannot that could not last forever, and one day will come better time for us, and that we survive, because that human forces came there, and that civilized world finally could see what was going on. But unfortunately, as I said, they just came to observe our tragedy, and after that we were handed over to Serb hands, and we were brutally massacred. And I have to admit, despite that I was accustomed to the war and the horror, and I lost many of my friends, my neighbors, my relatives until that moment, until July 1995. But what was going on later, what was came later, I hadn't expected that. I could never imagine that at the very end of the war that we could be hit with such massacre. After a break during the war, and I started again with my school at the time in 1990. It was 1995, and I was a first grade of high school in Srebrenica, and soon after that the offensive Mladic offensive interrupted all that, and we should have to go. We should have gone somewhere, but we didn't know where to go, because it was our last refuge. Srebrenica was our last refuge, and we didn't know where to go again. And I remember that I were hiding with my family, with my father and sisters and mother and other neighbors from the refugee camp. We were hiding in the forest, because I lived for one certain period in a refugee camp as well, because we were sent from Srebrenica town to that refugee camp, and we spent one period of my life there. And the last year, it was the last year of that occupation, when we spent there in the refugee camp, maybe 15 kilometers far from Srebrenica. And after that, we were forced to escape and to go somewhere, and we spent in the woods, in the forest, and all the time we could hear shelling and Serbian artillery and bombs, and everywhere bad around us. And in that moments we had to make the decision where to go, and my mother and sisters decided to go to the UN compound in Potocari near Srebrenica, and it was the main UN compound, and they tried to find a shelter there. But it was a question for me and my father what to do, and my father later decided to join the column of men and boys, mainly men and boys. That column, in fact, tried to reach Tuzla territory. It is 100 kilometers through the mountains. It is a perilous road with minefields and with Serb soldiers everywhere around. And that column, in fact, tried to reach the territory, but unfortunately many were killed there, and just some of them survived. My father decided to go there, and it was a question for me where to go. And father said to me, because I was at the age of 70 years, it was a question for me. He said to me, "It is up to you. It is up to you. You have to decide where to go, with your mother and sisters, or with me." And then at that moment, no one could decide about your life, And I said, "I will go. I will go, Daddy. I will go with you, and I will join to him." And soon after that, I lost my father in the chaos, in the chaotic situation, because of shelling, and it was really chaotic, and everyone wanted to escape, to run away from Srebrenica, to how everyone wanted to save his own life, and in the end, I found myself in the mass of people, and without anyone. I didn't know anyone. I just remember that I was crying and calling for my father, but no one wanted to help me at that moment. And I remember that I left somewhere at the rear part of the column between 1,000 and 2,000 men and boys. And after 2 days and 2 nights, the column was cut. And I remember when that I was stuck somewhere in the forest. It was high forest, and I didn't see anything around, and it was darkness, and a lot of people were wounded, and my schoolmates as well, and many of them were wounded. Some were killed, and some were crying, and it was difficult moment. In fact, that were difficult moments, the most difficult moments in my life, and I don't know how I stay normal in such circumstances, without support from anyone, and but I remember everything, and I remember later that the Serb officers and Serb soldiers and police officers, they were calling for us to surrender, and using a megaphone, and they would say to us, surrender, or we will kill you. And but we were hiding, and I didn't dare to get out. I didn't from the forest, and the other boys did the same. And in one moment we didn't have a choice, and we were forced to get out. And I remember later that there were a lot of Serb soldiers, police officers, and a lot of tanks and other weapons on wheels, and they behaved toward us correctly at that moment, because they wanted to pull all the people, or almost all the people from the forest, and they finished that. After that, they started with torture. We were treated very, very badly at that moment, and we were forced to bury our faces in the high grass on one meadow, and our wounded friends were in front of us, and after that they were killed. And it was 13th of July. We were forced that in fact we were loaded on the trucks, and one of soldiers said to us, you will be, don't worry, you will be safe, and you will be with your families in next days, and you, as they said, you would be treated at all the Geneva Conventions. And I didn't know what the Geneva Conventions meant, but I heard something in my school. But at that moment, I felt sarcasm in the voice of that soldier, and probably he was aware will be with us in next days, and they promised us that we would be with our families, but it was a lie. And and we are coming on Bratunac town, and the day after we spent after we spent the night on the trucks in Bratunac, they organized a column of buses and trucks, and that column will start their movement. But I don't know where we are going, and because we thought that we think that we are going to our families, But they had a plan for us, and we were not aware of that at that moment. And soon after that, they closed the trucks completely, the canvas and the trucks, and the column started to go to the destination when the massacre took place. In fact, they took us to the place named the village of Petkovci. It was one Serbian village, 50 or 60 kilometers far from Srebrenica, and all the mass executions took place there. But at the time, we thought on the truck that we could survive, because if they wanted to kill us, they could do it immediately without driving us in so many directions, you know. But they had a plan, and they had locations, prepared locations, and everything was ready there, schools and everything, machinery for digging the mass grave, and everything was ready. And it was on 14th of July when we arrived in front of the one building, and in fact it was a primary school in that village of Petkovci. It was catastrophe on the track, and you can imagine here in Bosnia in July the temperature was so high, and over 30 degrees of Celsius, and outside of the truck, but on the truck with completely closed the canvas, it was hell, real hell. And I remember that the people drank their own urine, and I just remember that I survived because of one small hole on the canvas, and all the time I used that small hole to look through it, and I followed the direction of our movement, and of our moving, and I followed the Drina River, and after that I recognized the place where we were survived the massacre. And yeah, and soon after that, when we were closed in the school, as soon as night fell, they started with the killing immediately, without waiting for anything. And in fact, I was everyone was shocked, and many of us could believe. Of course, everybody had a fear for his own life, but that we would be with our families. It was normal. If they wanted to kill us, they could do it immediately. Yeah, and it was logical at that moment to think in that way. But and after that, when they started killing in the school, many of us could not accept that fact that you could be killed in few moments later. And if it was obviously, I remember that many of those who were killed later, they would say, no, they don't kill us. They don't kill us. Why? There is no any reason there was any reason for that. But they had planned to kill all of us. And I remember that all the time I was forced to listen to the screaming gunfire, blows and everything from the whole of the school. And somewhere in the midnight, it was my turn to get out. And I remember that one of the soldier came in, and because the people wanted at the moment, when they realized finally, some of them wanted to escape, jump out through the windows. And one of soldiers came in and said, Red Cross is coming, and please be calm and prepare. Red Cross is coming to register you for exchange. And he made us calm. And soon after that, they ordered us to leave the classroom 2 by 2. I found my uncle there in the classroom in one angle. In the corner of the classroom, and I asked him to leave the classroom together, but he refused. He said, no, I don't want. And I remember that he left behind me, and I had left with other boy. And as soon as I left the classroom, soldiers were waiting for us, and one of them ordered me to take off my clothes to the waist, and to take off my shoes. And one of them tied my hand in my back, and pushed me in the next classroom. And when they finished with that, they ordered us to leave the school. And leaving the school, and I just walk with this in this position with my hand bent down, because I realized that it was the end. And but I couldn't leave the school without seeing. In fact, I see the piles and piles of dead body in front of the main door outside on the left and on the right side, and something was sticky underneath my feet. In fact, it was blood. It was blood, human blood, and I just remember that I left the school, but and I was waiting for to be killed in front of the school, but they didn't do that in front of the school. They loaded us on the truck, and soon after that, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, truck came on the location for mass executions, and I all the time I heard the gunfire outside, and I don't, and I cannot say what I felt at that moment, but I know that I recognized some of my teachers on the truck among the prisoners there, and I asked them something, and later they ordered us immediately. In fact, everything was happening so fast, and I just heard an order that we should leave, that we have to leave in a group of five, in groups of five, the truck, and I remember that I was hiding behind the others on the truck. And one of the prisoner managed to untie himself, and he asked me, "Do you want to untie? I, do you want to untie you as well? Do you want? Do you want?" But I refused. I said, "No, no, no, no need. No need. And anyway, I would be killed. Anyway, anyway, I will be killed. No, no need for that." And I just remember that he jumped out, hiding behind others. But when there was no room for hiding, I jumped out in one of the groups, and I just remember that I was walking the same way with my head bent down, and I didn't want to look at them. It was darkness, but I noticed their silhouettes in front of me, but I didn't want to look at them. I just walking in this way, and I don't remember that I had fear at that moment. Maybe I accepted that I would be killed in minutes. One of them just said to find a place, to find a place. Closer, I noticed the rows and rows of dead bodies in front of us, and at that moment, probably I was shocked, and I don't remember how I was hit. They just opened the fire, and I don't remember really. I don't know how I was hit. I just remember that I was lying on my stomach. I was shivering. I was trembling, and bullets were hitting everywhere around me. Uh, the bullets whistled, and I just waited for next one to come and hit me, and I felt a sharp pain in my right side on my stomach and my right arm. In fact, I was hit with 3 bullets in my stomach and with 1 bullet in my arm. But at that moment, I didn't know. I just was bleeding, and I just was waiting to die, and people were dying everywhere around me, and that rattles around me, and people were moaning, and later but the people in the same row, and people are falling down, and all the time I could see that, and later when they put the next group in front, beside behind my row, and one bullet hit my left foot, and it was so painful for me, and it was unbearable, and for me, and I just wanted to die at that moment. I just wanted to die because I was suffering. I was so suffering in that moment, and soon after that they they finished with that killing, but a lot of people with the firing, but a lot of people were alive yet, and they they gave orders to the soldiers to finish with us. And in one moment, I just noticed that the boat, military boat, boat in front of my eyes, and I just closed my eyes, waiting to be killed and to be shot. But in that moment, I don't know. Probably he didn't notice, and he killed the guy beside me who was moaning loudly because I don't know how. Probably he was dying, and at that moment, if I although I wanted to die at that moment, probably unconsciously I wanted to live as well. Despite such suffering, probably a human being wants to live, wants to survive, and it was some, it was probably some unconscious wish, and probably I was calm at that moment. I don't know. I don't remember, but I just remember that I was hit with the small parts of the ammunition or of the parts of the stone, and in my neck and in my shoulder. And I said to myself, "Oh my mom, oh my mom, why don't I die? I was hit. I was wounded all over the body, everywhere, in fact, and I was suffering, and less and less screaming, less and less moaning, less and less crying around us. And in one moment, I couldn't hear nothing. I couldn't hear anything, in fact, and they just started the joke, and they were joking at that moment, and I cannot imagine such such people and such a mind who can enjoy in someone's suffering, and it is very difficult to explain that, and I can not imagine that, and I cannot I cannot ever understand that, you know, that there are some people who can enjoy in someone's suffering. And at moments I didn't dare to call him to kill me. I wanted to be killed at that moments. I wanted, but I didn't dare to call him. And then soon after that, they started in June. They started they truck, and they left the place, and no one could be heard around. And I just wanted to turn my head on my. In fact, I wanted to make my head more comfortable to die easier, and turning my head, I noticed that someone was moving alive. He said, "Yes, yes, come to untie me, come to untie me." I said, "Oh, I can't move, I can't move, I can't, because I was hit, I was wounded, I can't move." But he insisted. He asked me, he begged me to come, and I don't know how, but somehow I started rolling, and I somehow I reached him, and I tried to untie him with using my teeth to cut his ties, and but soon after that, the next truck was arriving, and I said to him, please, please, we can go. Please, if you can, we have to go. The truck is arriving. But he said, no, no, please, please untie me. Please don't leave me, please. I wanted to untie him, but I didn't succeed to do it, and I helped him somehow. I don't know, and he started walking with his hands in his back, because he was hit only in his head, but with small scars. It wasn't serious, was nothing serious. And but I couldn't move. And I before I untied him, I rolled my body, and he succeeded to untie my hands. And but I couldn't move. And I began to crawl, and I was crawling, in fact, over the dead bodies. It was a horrific scene. And we were hiding there in the bushes, and I used the stone to cut his thighs. And he helped me after that, because he used his shirts and underwear, because he wasn't he didn't take off his shirt in school. I don't know why. Probably because he was taken from the different locations into the school. And because of that, he used the parts of his clothes, and used my underwear to put on my wound to stop my bleeding. And I remember I was in his lap. And it was very difficult for me, but I don't remember that moment the best. But when I talked to him in the years after that, and he said to me, I was hugging him, and I was crying, and I was and he helped me. And in the dawn, very early in the morning, he said to me, uh, we 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 have to go. We have to go somewhere. We could be arrested again. We could be killed. And after that came the days of suffering, real suffering for me, because I didn't know where to go at that moment, and in fact, we didn't know. He could leave me, and he could go without me. It would be easier for him, but probably he could not survive mentally, because it was a question for him. And but I have to say that he was one brave man. And even if he didn't know me personally, and he didn't want to leave me, he wanted to help me. And we could be killed. We could be uh, captured, and again, and we could be killed. But he refused to leave me. I remember the days when I was crawling. I was bleeding, and of course I wanted to survive and to live, but I didn't have strength. And I was exhausted. I was lost a lot of blood. And I would say to him, please leave me. Please leave me. I couldn't move. Please leave me. He never wanted to leave me, and he would give me support, and he would ask me, please stand one day more, please, please, please. And he would made path for me in front of how I could crawl. And later we slept in the graveyards, and we hid everywhere. And after a few days, we arrived in one small village, and that later we realized that we came in a village that was in the hands of Bosnian government. And they helped us, but I don't remember that in that moments if I lost my consciousness. I just remember that a lot of people were around me in the villages in the village, and they were pouring water, drops of water in my mouth, and they were crying. Some people were crying, and I started to cry as well. And I thought my father survived, but unfortunately didn't at that moment. And in fact, so almost all the male population were killed. And my other uncles and my other relative members, my uncle who left in the school was killed as well. And after that, I was taken to the hospital in the Tuzla city. And yeah, immediately after, and in the months and the weeks after the massacre, after the Srebrenica, I was recovering for a long period, and I was wounded, and I heard later after that that many didn't survive, and that thousands of people were killed, and but it was easier for me and for everyone, I believe. For everyone who survived the Srebrenica, it was easier to forget it and don't remember that horror. And at the beginning, I behaved, and I was very cold, and I had a very cold attitude toward the Srebrenica, and but as time passed, I realized that that such tragedy you cannot take eraser and erase from your memory, and you cannot get rid of such things. And in fact, visiting my psychiatrist and in the weeks and the months later, I realized that I have that I must live with the tragedy, that I must in fact that uh, my remembering and everything my will live forever with me, and I will die with it. And what I had to do, I had to face with it. And after that, I started to face it, and accepting such things. I live easier, but I had to accept it. You can no, you can. It is something that you cannot run away from it. Start again with my school and all that. It was difficult for us, and the Srebrenica. I know. I remember that I didn't want to talk about that, and no one in school. I just remember that my schoolmates, my school friends, I could hear them whispering about me and about something probably what I had survived, but they didn't dare to ask me anything about that, and I was totally closed every door of myself, and didn't want to talk about that, and it lasted for almost 20 years that I started say and talk about it openly. Everything was difficult for me, but at the time I was taken to the hospital, I didn't know anything about my family, about my mother, about my sisters, about anyone, and I didn't know if I survived. In fact, because I just remember the surgeries on my bodies everywhere, and I was crying, and in one moment they found my mother and sisters. They deported from Srebrenica, and they were in our refugee camp near Tuzla, and they came to me, and I just remember that my mother couldn't. In fact, they didn't say what I survived, and they after that my mother realized what I survived. In fact, and at that moment, you know, we lost a lot of members, many members of families. I lost father, my mother lost two brothers. I was wounded. We were without home, without clothes. I was naked, in fact, and we were without anything, without medicine, without food, without anything, and we lived on the edge of catastrophe, really on the edge of catastrophe, and we lived day by day. We didn't know what could happen tomorrow, and what can happen. We waited for our loved ones. I knew that many people were killed. I saw massacre. I saw mass killing, but didn't know anything about my father, and we were waiting for him, in fact, and you know, and it really it was the edge of catastrophe for me, and I lived with depression and with nightmares, with everything, and in fact I had to face with all of this. For someone from abroad or for someone outside of Srebrenica, it is very hard to imagine that today, 25 years after the massacre, after the genocide, that the victims and that perpetrators and those who supported war criminals, that they use and to walk the same streets, in fact, and to use the same institutions and to have the same rights today in Srebrenica and in the places around Srebrenica. It is very difficult and very hard to imagine that, but it happens today, and we live such a life here. It happens because the evil wasn't evil isn't defeat, in fact, here, and that is the problem. That is the problem. In fact, after such massacre, after such mass executions, mass killing, that moment that peace accords stopped the war, and we must appreciate the peace before all. But with that was done a huge injustice to the victims. And in fact, the perpetrators and those who committed crimes, those who supported crimes, who denied the genocide, who glorified the war criminals, in fact, they are rewarded. They are rewarded, and the crime is awarded, in fact. And that is problem. And in that way, a huge injustice done to the victims. And because of that, that injustice should be removed. And because we as victims are left alone again to fight against those who supported crimes or who committed crimes, and we left alone, and that is problem. And because of that, and to remove that huge injustice, and that would be my message about that, and about the perpetrators, because of that they many of them still walk around us everywhere. But future generations, and always often I say to him, and that the war criminals and those who wanted ethnically clean territory, they wanted to kill a innocent boy without any reason. And today that boy walk everywhere, visited so many places, many schools, everywhere except Srebrenica, and teach people and teach young generations that don't use hatred, and that they should not hate people and different people than they are. And that is my message. But I do that everywhere except Srebrenica, as I said, and my dream is that I can do one day in Srebrenica. For now, it is not possible. Why? And I have to repeat the answer from the earlier question. That is because the war in crime is rewarded, in fact, and because of that, there is no place for us victims today to say anything about my experience in school here, anything, because the genocide wasn't happen according to official institutions and Serbian officials, and that is the problem. And because of that, in fact, it would be my victory in the end if one day when I would have such lessons here in the school, and I hope it will be possible one day. But always will be my message that don't use your tragedy and your prejudices to hate others. There is no any reason, and always there is so much room, so much place to search, to study, to learn about others without that to limit your knowledge about others and spend your life in hatred. There is any reason, because we can learn so much about others, but we should not take anything for granted. You know, when we came in Srebrenica, and many things were delayed to do, and that is the example that we should do such things, positive things on daily basis, and especially ordinary people, because ordinary people are those who cannot start the war, or who can stop the war, but they are can show that they could be that they with their actions and with their acts, that they can show if whether they want to be good people or evil people. That is question. It means that every one of us can decide what to do. Every one of us, and we have to start from ourselves personally. Everyone can decide if he wants to hate, or if he wants to spread love and the positive things. And because of that, we should do it on daily basis, and I do it. My experience, my difficult experience alerted me that we should do it, and I do it every day on daily basis. I talk about that. Let's say that my message is that we should never use our state or our experience or our bad experience as a reason to spread hatred, including myself, and I do it. I don't want to use my tragedy to spread hatred, and that is my message, and no one should do